Hey, it's James Lynch. A lot of people are asking who is Islam Makhachev's first title defense at welterweight going to be against, and is a fight with Ilia Topuria ever going to happen? That's what I'm going to attempt to answer in today's video. Let's get into it right now. Of course, Islam winning the title from Jack Della Maddalena in a very dominant performance to capture a belt in another weight class. And there's a lot of options on the table right now. And one of the options that I think is going to happen next, just based off what I'm seeing, and I'll kind of back this up in a second here, is I think Islam's going to end up fighting Kamaru Usman. You just see the way things are going right now in the media. You've got Henry Cejudo, Usman's podcast partner for the Pound for Pound show, saying that this is the most compelling and competitive title fight you can make in the welterweight division right now. I don't agree with that, by the way. I'll talk about that in a sec. You've got Usman going on the media tour right now, or I should say his manager as well, talking about the fight making sense. Ali really pushing this fight. Understandable. Ali reps both Islam and Kamaru Usman as well, so there's some interest for him there too. And you've got Islam himself saying he wants to fight Kamaru Usman next. He says, I still think Kamaru can beat Morales and Prates both. Give me a choice and ask me, I want to fight Kamaru. It just looks to me, and even before Islam won the title, it looked to me like this was the plan all along. Now, it may not happen, but I'm just kind of seeing what's going on right now, and it looks like that is what's going to end up happening. And I'm sure the way they'll sell it is, well, Usman beat Joaquin Buckley, he's a former champion, and all that, and it makes sense. And on some level, I do understand why that fight makes sense. Usman's still a fairly big name in the division. He's a former champion. There's some intrigue there, absolutely. Do I think Kamaru Usman deserves it? Absolutely not. And my reasoning is simple. Kamaru Usman, yes, he beat Joaquin Buckley back in June, but he took all of 2024 off. And it's like people forget that. And I think that you need to start rewarding activity in the division when fighters are taking fights. For example, Sean Brady fought Michael Morales this weekend. He ended up losing. Brady didn't really need to fight Michael Morales. He finished Leon Edwards the fight previously. If he really wanted, he could have protested and wanted a title shot. I think he absolutely could have had a case for that with finishing Leon Edwards in the fight before, but instead he stays active. He's a good company man. He ends up losing. Now Morales is the star. How come a Sean Brady's not getting rewarded for being active, where a guy like Kamaru Usman fights once and gets it done? I would also point out that that win over Buckley, while it was dominant and very great, you know, is Buckley even a contender? I don't know the answer to that. And I mean, no disrespect to Buckley. He's had a good UFC career, has one of the best knockouts in UFC history. But if we're analyzing his wins here, his two best wins are against guys that are pushing 40, and Stephen Thompson and Colby Covington. I just did a video on Covington last week. I think he's retired. Stephen Thompson's not that far from retirement either. So that's a fight that, you know, is Buckley really a contender? Does Buckley beat a Carlos Prates or Michael Morales or even a Sean Brady? I don't know the answer to that, but we definitely know that he's not a contender based off the way he looked against Kamaru Usman. That fight wasn't competitive, and it was a fight, by the way, that Buckley was favored to win. So this is where I think that if we're basing this off Usman's win, I don't know if Buckley is really that great of a win to come back and warrant another title shot. The big issue I have at welterweight right now is the fact that there are other contenders waiting in the wings. For example, if we're going off the, you know, you can take, some time off and get a title shot, then why isn't Shavkat Rakhmonov in this conversation? A lot of people think that Shavkat should fight someone else, including myself. I think he's been out too long, but he hasn't lost. He's undefeated, and maybe not the best performance against Ian Gary in that last win back in December of 2024, but we also find out after the fact that he was injured. So I think Shavkat's got just as good of a case here because of the fact he's undefeated. And yes, you could argue the same thing that I just argued with Buckley, that his best wins are, you know, Jeff Neal, Stephen Thompson, Neil Magny. Maybe doesn't deserve it, but it's the fact that Shavkat's undefeated. That's the big difference there, as opposed to Buckley, who lost a number of fights. So I think Shavkat's got a case if we're going in the lens of you can take some time off and still get an opportunity, but I do think Shavkat needs to fight someone else. The fight that I think everyone feels like should be fighting the winner, or should be fighting Islam next, is the fight this weekend between Belal Muhammad and Ian Gary. Let's look at Belal Muhammad's shoes for a second. He loses his title. Yeah, it wasn't a great performance. Jack definitely won that fight. I know there's some people out there who feel like Belal got robbed. I'm not in that camp whatsoever. But if Belal wins, he's only lost one fight. Why shouldn't he get an opportunity to fight for his title? It's not like he lost his title like 3 or 4 years ago. Belal lost it earlier this year. If he beats Gary, I think he absolutely has a case to fight Islam. And Belal's a former champion. He's done quite well even prior to that. Belal had a very good win streak. Remember, the whole issue with Belal was he couldn't get a title shot, but he definitely worked his way up to that title shot. I think he's got a case. And then how about Ian Gary? He's got the one loss to Shavkat. It was a close fight. He just defeated Carlos Prates earlier this year, which is a win that has aged very well, considering that Prates has now knocked out Jeff Neal and Leon Edwards. So again, I think this fight deserves more consideration than Kamaru Usman does. You could even make the case that Michael Morales deserves a title shot. Knocks out Sean Brady. Again, though, strength of schedule, not the best, but I mean, finishing Brady, The only other guy to do that in the UFC is Bilal Muhammad. That's a very, very, very good win. He's also undefeated. He's 26. There's a lot of hype there. So again, these are all options in the weight class. And if you want to get really picky here, Carlos Prates just knocked out Leon Edwards. First fighter to knock out Leon Edwards in the UFC. That's got to count for something. He also was the first fighter to knock out Jeff Neal in the UFC. Just the one loss to Gary on short notice. Outside of that, he's knocked out everyone. You know the UFC likes him. That's why he got the Leon Edwards fight. I think there's a case for Prates. So, like I said, I think they're going to end up going with Usman just because the way things are going in the media and the way things are getting pushed and the fact that Usman doesn't have a fight booked, it makes me think they're doing that. If I was the matchmakers, though, I would do the winner of Bilal and Ian Gary to fight Islam next, and then I would do Kamaru Usman and Shavkat Rakhmonov, two guys that took time off. They should fight each other. Let's see who the number one contender is. And then you could do Morales and Prates, and that's the fight that everyone wants to see anyways. I think that's how you figure out the division. That's just kind of spitballing off the top of my head. That's what I would do. Now, I know you're watching this video and going, James, what about Ilia Topuria is on the thumbnail? We're going to get to that, but I wanted to set this up properly. So let's talk about Ilia Topuria right now. As of the time we're recording this, and I've mentioned this on my live streams, and I think I'm going to be proven correct here. My understanding is Ilia Topuria is not on the Paramount card in January. Now, we haven't heard any announcements for that card. I think it's fair to say that Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes will be on that card. I've heard some other intriguing matchups that are going to be added to that event. My understanding is they haven't announced anything because they're waiting for the ESPN deal to run out, and then they'll start announcing stuff. But what I'm hearing behind the scenes is that Topuria will not be fighting on that card. So if he's not fighting, his last fight was in July. A lot of people are talking about this Islam and Topuria fight. And I do think it's the biggest fight you can do in the UFC right now, assuming John Jones is not coming back, which I don't think he is. But I think, something we have to look at. So first and foremost, if Topuria is not fighting in January, when's he going to fight? Is he going to fight early next year? Is he going to end up fighting a year later? I mean, he fought Oliveira in late June. We could potentially be seeing him fight again next. And I don't think they're just going to give him the Islam fight with such a logjam like I mentioned at 170 right now, right? That's the issue. Or let's say Islam even moves down, that's still going to put a logjam at 170 when you have all these contenders waiting in the wings. So first and foremost, timing's not on Ilia Topuria's side. The other issue with Topuria is that, I just don't know if people are not paying attention to this. And to me, this is the biggest factor here. Does anyone really think that the UFC is going to let Ilia Topuria move up to 170 to fight Islam? Because I think that's the only way that fight happens. I don't get any indication that Islam's going to be moving back down a weight class, doing that really hard weight cut. I mean, what was one of the big themes going into the Della Maddalena fight was that Islam felt a lot better going into that fight, not having to cut as much weight. Do you think Islam's going to move back down and be at a disadvantage fighting Ilia? No, if Islam wants every advantage in that fight, you fight Ilia Topuria at 170. And I think if you're Topuria, I don't know if you want to have that fight at 170. I don't even know if the UFC lets him, right? He hasn't even made a title defense at 155 right now. Even Conor McGregor had to fight Eddie Alvarez after, beating Rafa dos Anjos, or beating, he beat Eddie Alvarez after that. And then I believe he defended his title against Nate Diaz. You know what? I better look this up. But kind of my point is, I believe Conor had to at least have a title defense after, or did he end up vacating it? Let me just double check this. Yes, I guess technically he, so he lost his title. He still ended up having to fight for the title again, I guess is my point. This still applies, ladies and gentlemen. So I forgot he vacated after beating Alvarez, and then Khabib won the title, and then he fought Khabib. So my point is that at least Conor McGregor fought at least one more time at 155 after getting his title. I don't think they're just going to let Topuria not defend at 155 and go up to 170. I think that's something that people are missing here. People want to see this fight, including myself, but you have to realize the weight class thing isn't making much sense. Add in the timing and all that. So I don't know what's going to happen. If I had to guess, I think Topuria fights later in the year, and I think he fights Paddy. That's the fight I've been hearing for a while. I know Gaethje's in the mix as well. That could take place too, but Paddy's younger. He's more popular. I think that's the route the UFC is going. I don't agree with it, but I think that that's kind of what the UFC is looking at. So to answer my own question on the thumbnail, I don't know if I don't think this fight's going to happen. I'm going to actually firmly say I don't think this fight happens. And, you look at Islam at his age and what he's accomplished. Islam right now is 34. He's not really that old, but does anyone see Islam having a long career at 170? I don't. I think he's probably got a couple fights left. Why would you? The longer you stick, Khabib showed us this, right? You retire undefeated. Islam's got one loss, but I really don't see him sticking around that much longer. And Topuria himself has said that he does not want to have a long career beyond, winning this title. So is the timing going to work out? If you've got Islam, who's got all these guys that are gunning for him at 170, and they're big, the fighters that want to compete for the title. So you've got that problem of a logjam at 170. Then you got the problem that Topuria is not fighting. Then you got the problem of Islam and Topuria not having long careers. I don't think it's going to happen. And it's unfortunate because this was one of the biggest fights the UFC could make, in my opinion. I think just globally, it is one of the biggest fights you could make. And unfortunately, I don't think the timing's going to work out. I don't think the weight class is going to work out. I don't think this fight ever happens. Now, I may be wrong. I've been wrong about other things before in this channel. I'm not immune to getting things wrong here. But it's not looking good. Let's put it that way. And I just think that fans are losing sight of A, the weight class, B, both of the fighters not wanting to compete that long, and C, the fact that we've got, this huge logjam there, especially if Usman fights. Like, to me, I didn't think that Usman should be getting this title shot for the reasons I mentioned, the layoff, the fact that, again, like, he's older. Like, that's the other thing. Like, Cejudo's talking about it's going to be the most competitive fight. Maybe, but I don't know if you can take that much away from him beating Buckley at this point, because I don't think Buckley's a contender at this point. Usman was great, but he's 38. He's going to be 39 in May, and he's fighting Islam, who's arguably in the prime of his career right now. I don't know if that goes well. I know Usman's a better style matchup. I'm sure Usman can stuff some takedowns and all that. It would be a more intriguing matchup. But I don't know. Like, I don't know if Shavkat is going to be a tougher fight for Islam than Usman is. I'm not really sure about that. So something to monitor, something to keep in mind. I'll probably do a follow-up video once they do determine who Islam's next opponent is or what rumors are out there. But I'll just say this right now. I don't think Islam and Topuria happens. I think the UFC is going to go with Islam and Usman, and I don't think they should. I think, and I'll go on record saying this, I think the winner of Saturday's fight between Bilal Muhammad and Ian Gary should be fighting Islam next. I think that's the way to go. So let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this. Who should Islam fight next? Do you think Islam and Ilia should take place? And if it does take place, where's it going to take place? Do you think Islam moves back down? Do you think Ilia moves up? I've heard some people mention catchweight. There's not a chance in hell they're going to do a catchweight fight, because there needs to be a belt on the line for either guy to have any sort of incentive to fight each other. So that's my view on this. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.